Wow, welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show. I'm Kat, the only feline in America that claws through corruption. We sniff out hypocrisy and we land on liberty every single time. Good morning, I'm your host. This is the unapologetic, truth-seeking, mouse-chasing, budget-balancing show, Conservative Cat. And we are going to be talking about the swamp creatures in Springfield today. Springfield and DC alike. And we're going to be even chatting about this guy who says, I'm not a bad guy. Okay, I'm not the bad guy here. And he's actually stealing a farm. So this Democrat, he's just a local Democrat. It's right outside of New York. It's in New York, I believe. and he's seizing this generational farm. Well, the municipality is seizing the generational farm for via eminent domain for housing, for government housing, which is absolutely ridiculous. And he says that he's justified in doing this because it's for the greater good. I've covered this story. It's a national story. Donald Trump has even talked about this before, or Donald Trump's administration has talked about this story before. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker locking up your Second Amendment rights. There's something about this law that they're not telling you. He recently signed into law something which this law would be completely impossible for me to follow at my house. We have guns literally laying everywhere. Now, we don't have any small children running around or anything like that. We have guns just laying around everywhere. And I am of the belief, even when, if I were to have children running around the house, I think that there's a way to teach your children not to touch guns in an inappropriate way. It's all about gun safety, even Nerf guns. When we were playing with guns when I was a kid, we were taught not to point Nerf guns at each other, okay? And not to put our finger on the trigger unless we were going to shoot the Nerf gun. And we were all taught gun safety in our home, even with the freaking play guns, okay? So there's a way to teach children about guns to where you don't have to lock them up 3 bedrooms away or multiple rooms away in a locked box with 3 padlocks on it, okay? Your firearm is useless then. So it's going to be pretty hard for me to comply with this new law because we've got guns literally laying on every single coffee table. I mean, I can't tell you how many guns we got around the house. So I probably wouldn't even be able to find them all and lock them up. No, I'm just kidding. I know where they're all at. It's just, this is a ridiculous, and it doesn't really help anybody. It just makes gun ownership more difficult, and that's what all gun control is about. We're going to get to that, but first, I do want to talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker. I think it's so interesting, the pro-choice movement. They say it's all about choice, choice, choice. God forbid you choose your baby, though, and choose to have a baby. Or God forbid, when that baby is born, you choose what school that baby should go to. So we're going to be talking about choice and how Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Dems are not really about choice. They say they're the kings of choice. Governor J.B. Pritzker calls himself the king of choice, except, when it's not convenient for the union donors. Okay, then he's not about choice. The union donors, the teacher union donors. So today we are digging into the biggest farce in Illinois politics since Rod Blagojevich tried to auction off a Senate seat on eBay. It is Pritzker's war on school choice. So let's dive right in. You know the drill, baby. Sharpen up those claws, grab your Constitution, and get ready to chase the truth like that red dot on the wall, like a laser pointer, okay? That red dot. I'm making a lot of feline jokes today. I think it's kind of funny. So let's rewind the tape. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he stood in front of the cameras and stages and press conferences, and he waves around that banner, choice, 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 like it's the Democratic flag, right? It's their banner. They're all about choice. And really what they're all about is choice when it comes to women's quote unquote reproductive freedom. They're my choice, my body, which it's so nasty what women have done. Women who are part of the pro-choice movement. You talk to any pregnant woman out there, they are going to tell you 100% it is not their body anymore. The moment you get pregnant, you realize you're pregnant. So it's a complete lie when women say, "Oh, you don't know." After 6 weeks, it's a complete and utter lie. Number one. Number two, you definitely know the moment, and it is no longer your body. Most women, just innately biologically, they understand, oh, this is no longer my body anymore. This is multiple bodies, and I have a responsibility to take care of this child. So disgusting what women have done in the pro-choice movement. Healthcare access, reproductive freedom, yada, 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 choice, 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 choice. But when it comes to what happens after a woman makes a choice to have her child, suddenly the word choice disappears, like Hunter Biden's laptop, right? Or like the Jeffrey Epstein files. Okay. So, God forbid you make the choice to have the child, first of all. They don't like it when you choose family and when you choose life. But even after that, so after you've made the choice of life, you don't get to make any more choices after that. Uh, Imagine this: a low income mom, she chooses life. She says, okay, I'm going to keep my baby. I'm a low income mom. I've got 2 jobs. I'm juggling some bills. I'm skipping meals to put food on the table for my kids. Uh, for my baby that I decided to have, I am going to have the best education for my child. I'm going to sacrifice the nice cars. I'm going to drive a beater around, and I'm going to pay for the best education for my child at a private Christian school that teaches reading, arithmetic, and morals, and they do all of this instead of drag queen story hour and DEI indoctrination. And I would much rather prefer to send my kid to a private Christian school. But when she tries to choose a better school, you see in Illinois, that's where her choice ends. Okay, the teachers union money begins, and that's where her choice ends. So the moment you choose life, you lose all of your other choices, and they really don't like you making the choice of life either. Okay, so Pritzker says, not so fast. That choice isn't on the menu. A better school? Sorry, you don't get to choose a better school for your child. Let's talk about the Invest in Kids Act. This is Invest in Kids Scholarship. This was a program. This wasn't a handout. Okay, this wasn't some Republican scam. It wasn't like a handout to private Christian schools. It was very simple. It was a very effective program. And it gave private donors a 75% tax credit when they donated to scholarship funds for low income kids. Okay. That's it. And guess what? It worked. There were 15,000 students, mostly minorities on this, uh, mostly poor kids on this, kids who escaped failing, broken government schools that didn't teach them. Okay. And they fled those schools on this scholarship, and they went to institutions that actually taught them. But in 2023, this is a couple of years ago, Illinois' all-powerful teachers union said, we don't really like the competition, so we're going to dump $1.5 million into the pockets of Springfield politicians and lawmakers just before they vote on extending this Invest in Kids program. Okay, so this was kind of like, how can I compare it? It's like a mafia bag drop. Okay, $1.5 million dumped into the campaign coffers of a lot of these lawmakers, and poof, the program was gone. And you're probably wondering to yourself, where was JB in all of this? Well, he sat there like a bloated statue he is, and he sat there silent, he sat there passive. He waited for the unions to finish their job, to drop off the mafia bag drop, okay, the cash drop. And he didn't even have to get his hands dirty, Governor J.B. Pritzker. He just sat there silent. He could have spoken up. He could have said, hey, this actually helps 15,000 children in our state, especially the disadvantaged ones, the minorities, the poor kids. But no, his silence was a green light for the teachers union to drop this $1.5 million into the pockets of the Springfield lawmakers. And just like that, Illinois became the only state in America to go backwards on school choice. I'm telling you, California, New York, even Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Hairgel, his state isn't the fantasy land of California. It's not even that bad when it comes to school choice. They even recognize that, hey, we should probably give parents a little bit of choice when it comes to sending their kids to the school of their choice. So who is the architect really behind the betrayal here? It's Governor J.B. Pritzker. Because of his silence, he sat there back there like a quiet little monarch. He was a quiet little tyrant. He is. And they were able to make this mafia cash bag drop into the coffers of the lawmakers and get rid of the Invest in Kids program. So let's talk about who really runs Illinois. It's the teachers unions. And it's incredible. So I know of a rural teacher. He contributes to his union $40 a month. But if you look at the spectrum, it's like anywhere between 40, that's on the low end, and then you can pay $120 per month into the union, like your union membership dues could be that costly. And all of that gets funneled right back into the campaign coffers of these politicians. So since 2010, those unions have dumped, write this number down, $21.5 million into state campaigns. They donate not out of kindness, not because they like it, they're lawmakers, but they do it to buy compliance. It's all about buying compliance. This is a legal bribed machine that's going on. And what do they get in return? They get a monopoly. The public school system can only fail upwards, okay, where administrators make six figures and your third grader can't read. This is the only system on planet Earth that is failing upwards, the public school system. So here's the kicker: the union bosses, they don't even use the public schools that they defend. Okay, so you've got your Chicago Teachers Union president, private school mom. You've got your Illinois Education Association, the IEA, the top lobbyist there. He is a private school dad. Okay, so these union bosses who, dump all of this money to defend public schooling and, create a monopoly on it, on education, they don't even use the public school system. So in fact, 3 out of every 10 Chicago teachers send their kids to a private school. So let me get this straight. Hold on. Back it up here, Kat. They know these government schools are broken. They escape them for their own families, but they block you from doing the same. It's straight up hypocrisy. It's cruelty, really. So let's talk about hope. There is federal action going on. On July 4th, you guys didn't catch the conservative cat show that broke this down in its entirety. Congress passed the Educational Choice for Children Act. Now, this was a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. So up to $1,700 for people donating to scholarship funds for low-income students that get tutoring, special education, and yes, private school scholarships. Okay, so it's very similar to the Invest in Kids program, just at a federal level. It's better because it's a dollar-for-dollar tax credit, not just 75% back when you donate. So you get like 100% back in a form of tax credit. So it doesn't cut the public school budget. I want to be very clear. This federal act that was passed, this law that was passed and signed into law on July 4th, very fitting, because freedom. This doesn't cut school budgets. It adds private money to the system. That's all it does. It saves taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars and it empowers parents, not bureaucrats. It's beautiful, it's fair, it's effective. And guess what Governor J.B. Pritzker called it? He called it destructive. So he says that this program that's helping poor kids get into private school, helping poor kids get tutoring, helping poor kids get special education. He said it was destructive, and he called the tax break a tax break for Trump's wealthy friends. Yeah, because apparently $1,700 tax credit is the only thing standing between Trump donors and total bankruptcy. What? $1,700 tax credit. This is a tax break for the wealthy. It's a tax break of up to $1,700 after you donate $1,700. This isn't for the wealthy. Okay, that's an insult. And he says that the program's destructive. So let's get real here. If you're poor in Illinois, your choice ends really at conception. You can give birth. They allow you that choice. You can choose to give birth at this point. They don't like that you choose life, but you can choose to give birth. But once your baby's out, you're stuck with a broken district, trapped in a school that kids can't read in. 1 out of 4 kids can't read. Most schools here in the state of Illinois, 1 out of 4 kids can't read. Can read. Let me rephrase that. 1 out of 4 kids can read. Okay, so that means 3 kids can't read. 3 out of 4 can't read. And only 14% can do math at grade level here in the state of Illinois. So once your baby's out, you're trapped. You're trapped raising this child in a school that has 0 academic performance numbers. You don't get a voucher, you don't get a credit, you don't get a voice. that's the bottom line here in the state of Illinois. Pritzker and the unions, they have created a class system where wealthy families, like your union boss families, they get options. They get to choose if they go to private school or not. But the poor get excuses. They get, oh, well, that's a destructive program. Oh, well, that's a program at a federal level that is for the wealthy. So they wrap it all up in language, by the way, like equity and anti-racism, as if denying Black and brown kids access to a quality education is some sort of social justice flex. They try to say that programs like the Invest in Kids Act is racist, which is ridiculous. Like that this is some sort of form of social justice by ending the Invest in Kids Act, as if sending Black and brown kids to private school is somehow racist. Because God forbid we actually provide Black and brown people an opportunity. Remember, this is the Democrat Party, the same Democrat Party of the 1800s who enslaved Black people, the same people who, the eugenicists who created abortion, Margaret Sanger, who hated Black people, created abortion to kill the Black people, and Black women disproportionately get abortions far more than white women. So it's doing its job of the eradication of that race. So remember, this is the racism party. This is the party who hates Black people. So we shouldn't be shocked when they say that, oh, sending Black and brown students to a quality school, that's racist. They're going to say that because they don't want Black and brown kids to have the opportunity and to make something of themselves and to have a quality education. They don't want that because they are nothing but a bunch of actual racists. So every politician who helped kill the Invest in Kids Act should have to stand in front of every single family that they betrayed and explain why their children don't deserve the same shot at success. And we really need to vote out all of the politicians who helped kill that program, the Invest in Kids program. So this is where we fight back, folks. Pritzker does not have to opt into the Educational Choice for Children Act. This is a federal program. He does not have to opt in to that program. So, or he does not have to opt out. So Illinois still has a chance to join, but you have to raise your voice and tell him to join. So like you can opt in or opt out. This is kind of complicated of the federal program, and you have to raise your voice and let your lawmakers and let Governor J.B. Pritzker know that, hey, we want to opt into this federal program. We want this federal program, the Educational Choice for Children Act, which is essentially like replacing at a federal level the Invest in Kids Act. So what do? We call your legislators, demand Illinois opt in to the federal school choice program, that tax credit, the Educational Choice for Children Act. So write this down if you got a pen handy, because I like to provide you solutions. I don't just like to bitch and moan on the microphone here. Okay, we expose the hypocrisy. We talk about how the CTU president, how the IEA top lobbyist, how they're both sending their kids to private schools. We ask every union-backed lawmaker where their kids go to school. Okay. So, and an easy way to find out if your legislator is union-backed, teachers union-backed specifically, you just go on illinoissunshine.org, you type in your legislator's name, and you look, and if there's the Federation of Teachers there, or some sort of teachers union, the Chicago Teachers Union, and they've donated to them, you can see their political or like their campaign coffers. It's pretty easy to find out if your lawmaker is union-backed. So, if your lawmaker is union-backed, my recommendation is the next go-around, the next election cycle, which would be 2026, is to vote them out. Support local school choice initiatives, attend your school board meetings, make your voices heard, and most importantly, vote like your kids' future depends on it, because it does. They do. The kids' future depends on who you put in office. So we can turn this around, but we've got to show up, we've got to speak boldly, and we have to stop treating Governor J.B. Pritzker like he's somebody who's harmless. I said it over and over yesterday. Governor J.B. Pritzker is a smart guy. Believe it or not, you might think that he's dumb or liberal or whatever, but he knows exactly what he's doing. And we have to stop pretending like this guy is a mascot for progressivism. He is a wrecking ball. Okay. He's a wrecking ball. And he's going to destroy this state even further. I don't know how, if we don't stand up now and speak boldly. So I got to take a quick break. I'm going to take a quick glass, get a quick glass of water, and then we will be back because you got to buckle up. We are going to be talking about how what Governor J.B. Pritzker just did to every law-abiding gun owner in Illinois. And spoiler alert, it is not a good thing. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, and we're going to be talking about the myth of free college today. Free college, they cry, as if professors would grade 100 term papers for hugs. Okay, do you know any professor that would be willing to grade papers in exchange for hugs? I don't know any professors that would do that. And let me get one thing straight. There's no such thing as free college. Somebody pays for it. And spoiler alert, it's not the kid getting the woke gender studies degree. It's going to be you. It's going to be me via our taxes, your grandchildren's taxes. And they slap the word free on it, and they hope that you don't notice the bill until it's too late. So you know what happens when you make college free? You're going to flood the system with a bunch of people who aren't really ready for the working world. And then you're going to jack up tuition costs, because if it's getting paid by the taxpayer, why not jack up the tuition costs? And not to mention, you're devaluing the degree, okay? A bachelor's in gender liberation studies is not going to be worth much when you hand out these degrees like candy. Any kind of degree that you hand out, if you start handing them out like candy, then they're not going to be worth very much. And what's worse are these bloated institutions spending a whole lot of time pushing Marxist ideology, and they're not actually teaching our students marketable skills. There's diversity coordinators at these bloated institutions who make six figures, and your kid isn't able to get the student isn't able to get an internship unless they sell their soul to the wokeism ideology, and they sign a pledge about climate reparations, and they subscribe to this wokeism ideology. Here's a revolutionary idea, everyone. Not everyone needs to go to college. Trade schools, you can build homes, you can fix engines, you can wire up buildings, you can keep America humming. A welder can make up to $90K a year with no debt, a couple of trucks in the driveway, and he doesn't need a Marxist lecture on how his white privilege makes him inherently biased. Okay, free college and the free college crowd, they say that education is a right. But when government makes a right, they get to control it. So they'll say education is a right, and that's why it's got to be free. Reminder, spoiler alert, it's not free. They decide what gets taught, what speech is allowed, what ideas are allowed on campus, who's allowed on campus. That's not in education, that is indoctrination. So they say education is a right, and when government affords you rights, then they get to control it. Government is not in the business of giving you rights. We have unalienable rights, and those are laid out in the Constitution. Proverbs 22:7 says, the borrower is servant to the lender. Maybe we should stop chaining our young youth to debt in the name of fake opportunity. There's fake opportunity, and let's start talking about hard work, grit, and real world skills. Okay, don't fall for the fantasy. Nothing in life is free except salvation. And even that came at a cost. Jesus paid it, not the federal government. Okay, so it's time to stop sending our kids into these ideological boot camps, and we have to start investing in real futures. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Conservative Cat Show. I so do appreciate you tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Head on over to patriotpumpenergy.com. Patriotpumpenergy.com. Use promo code ConservativeCat at checkout for $10 off. It is the best promo code out there. Write it down with a green crayon if you have to. Conservative Cat for $10 off. Check out patriotpumpenergy.com. It's a premium pre-workout. I drink it every day. It is so good for you. There's no artificial colorings in it, and there's a little bit of black pepper extract in it. This is a supplement. I know that Dick Durbin would love for my company to not exist because they can't control it. But supplements are the way of the future. I really do believe that. I think that more and more Americans are starting to catch on that supplementation. And here's how I view supplements. It used to be where you would eat with your hands, and we weren't as hygienic as we used to be, and we actually got a bunch of the minerals, right, that we were supposed to get when eating. But we don't get a lot of that, and a lot of that is stripped. All of the nutrients out of our food is stripped. We know that with the Maha movement. They strip a lot of that stuff out. So soy is actually not that bad for you. It is a great source of protein. But when you make soybean oil, they strip all of the nutrients out of it by soaking it in hexane, which is a dangerous chemical. Hexane was traditionally used to clean up grease on the floor, like oil spills in oil refineries. Okay, now they're using it in our food, and they're stripping our food of its nutrients. And you need supplementation, and supplementation actually works. Our product works. It's patriotpumpenergy.com. Be sure to go get it today. And they would love nothing more than to regulate that, but they can't, and they haven't been able to. The FDA, it's not regulated by the FDA because, it's not a pharmaceutical or anything. And they would love to get it off the shelves because it actually works. And we don't treat the symptoms, right? You actually treat the cause, which is, hey, you're lacking some vitamin C, you're lacking some vitamin A, you're lacking the supplementation that you're supposed to be getting in your food, in your nutrients, or the nutrients that you're supposed to be getting out of your food, you're not getting because of the processing that happens. So supplements are needed because big food has stripped out the nutrients into ultra processed food. Exactly. So head on over to patriotpumpenergy.com today. All right. This is one of my favorite topics. I love talking about guns. They're so much fun to shoot. We've got guns all over the house. We don't lock them up. At first, I won't lie. Because when I grew up in the house, my dad always locked up his guns. He would, lock up his rifles and stuff like that, accessible. And he always taught us how to access the guns as children, if needed. Okay, so I grew up in a house where we did have lock boxes. They weren't like padlocked or anything like that. They were pretty accessible. It's just, a box that you keep them in, and you don't keep them out on the coffee tables or anything. My husband's from the South, South Carolina. They do things a little bit differently down in the South. So now I have like an arsenal, in my house. Yeah, essentially. And there's just guns laying everywhere. So no, I have a different position on it now as I've grown older. It's all about gun safety. Don't put your hand on the trigger if you're not going to shoot. Okay, don't point the gun at anybody. And if you practice actual gun safety, there's no need to lock up your guns, even if there are children around the house. Now, maybe young kids, maybe keep them out of reach, right? Because it's kind of hard to teach them if their brains aren't capable of comprehension. But once they get to a certain age, you can 100% teach gun safety, and kids aren't shooting themselves in the face. There's not a ton of gun accidents. The left would have you believe that kids are getting into all kinds of gun accidents at home. That's just not true. The statistics aren't there to support that. It's very easy to teach children gun safety. In fact, I would say it's easier to teach a child gun safety than a grown adult who hasn't been around guns and is because they've developed feelings and connotations about guns. It's hard to break that. Kids, they don't really, it's kind of like a blank slate. They don't develop those connotations, and it's easier to teach them about gun safety, in my opinion. Anyway, this is going to be a kind of impossible law to comply with. I'm not going to lie. This is a brand new law that they've got, and of course, they're making it harder for law-abiding citizens, law-abiding gun owners in this state. So let's start with the headline. Governor J.B. Pritzker has just signed Senate Bill 8. This is the so-called Safe Gun Storage Act. sounds harmless, right? Who doesn't want guns stored safely? And when I say guns are out, I'm not saying that they're not safe, right? Some of them are unloaded. We have a few that are loaded. I know which ones are loaded in the house. But we've got unloaded ones just laying around and things like that. So everybody is about proper gun safety and storage, okay? Your gun is useless if it is multiple bedrooms away with 3 padlocks on it, okay? It is going to be completely useless. I like this comment. A gun for home protection is useless if locked away and unloaded. Exactly. When somebody comes into your home or threatens you in some sort of way, coming into your home, you are going to want that gun like right away, right? If not on your person, you definitely need it in arm's reach, okay? Which is why we have so many. So that way we're protected. It's about home protection. So let's dig into the details here. This is not about safety at all. It's about control. Let's take a look at this. This is him actually signing it. This is a YouTube clip. Check this out. Here we go. Let's see. Here we go.
So this isn't a debate. Safe storage is no longer a debate. It's threatening our lives. It's a life-saving standard. It prevents accidents. It prevents suicides. It keeps firearms away from those who should never have access. Senate Bill 8 is common sense and life-saving.
In Section E, a violation of this act is prima facie evidence of negligence per se in a civil proceedings if a minor, at-risk person, prohibited person obtains the firearm and causes personal injury or death of oneself or another in the use of the firearm or commission of a crime. So proximate cause, that is the theory that if someone would come to my home, steal my firearm, even if I invited them in, and go use that firearm in a commission of a crime, maybe kill somebody, that victim's family can come back and sue me. Now, that has been declared unconstitutional in the state of Illinois. So we already have court cases. And so on its merit, this bill is right off the bat going to be declared unconstitutional based on Illinois law. This isn't even talking about going to the Supreme Court or extending this out.
The U.S. Supreme Court stated in D.C. v. Heller that you have a right to have a firearm accessible for the purposes of self-defense. It dealt specifically with a law that required the firearms to be locked up or inaccessible via trigger lock or cable lock, just as we are dealing with here. It stated that that firearm not being accessible for self-defense is a violation of Second Amendment rights.
First, we amend the FOID Act to require firearm owners to report a lost or stolen firearm within 48 hours. And a change in the law does no good if folks don't know that the change was made. Currently, this change, the requirement is to report at 72 hours. And again, we are changing it to 48 hours. And to make sure that folks know about this change, Senate Bill 8 requires education for gun owners of their obligation to report a lost or stolen firearm. This information shall be given in written form at both the application or renewal point of your FOID card, as well as at the time of a firearm purchase at an FFL.
Yeah. Thank you. No, this, the clock starts ticking when they detect that the gun has been stolen or lost. So once they find out, then that's when the clock starts ticking.
Okay. So I want to play that for you. I'll break it down even further. Under this new law, Illinois gun owners must lock up their firearms if there's a chance a minor or an at-risk person or someone prohibited from owning a gun could get access. Okay, so now Big Brother gets to decide who counts as at-risk in your house. Okay, so I mean, that's just so terrible to begin with. You've got Big Brother government asking you to evaluate who's at risk in your house, and they're coming in and telling you have to decide who's at risk, which you already do anyway. Okay, if you have a child who has mental health problems, or if you have somebody who's at risk, somebody who has mental issues in your home, you know that, and you take the appropriate steps. You don't need Big Brother, you don't need government coming in and asking you to make that risk assessment. You already do that, okay? You already make the risk assessment when you have minor children who can't comprehend gun safety rules. You already make that assessment. You might put them up higher, out of reach for children. What's next? Mental health evaluations before opening up your gun safe. Are they going to come in and perform mental health evaluations on all of the members of your family in your house? I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. That's the next step. I guarantee it. They're going to start performing mental health evaluations. They already do it at school. Mental health screenings, or yeah, that's what they call it at public schools. All the kids have to undergo mental health screenings. So the next step is mental health evaluations performed in your own home, where somebody with a clipboard shows up, knocks on your doors, and performs those mental health evaluations. And, it's interesting, under this law, they also changed the definition of a minor. It used to be 14, and now it says 18. So suddenly your 17-year-old daughter who goes hunting with you, okay, is considered a legal risk. Okay, your 17-year-old daughter who goes hunting with you, understands gun safety, you taught her well. All of a sudden, she is considered a legal risk by the state, and she can't have access to your guns. You have to make sure the guns are locked up away from your 17-year-old daughter who likes to hunt with you, which makes no sense. Okay, the same state that says your kid, by the way, at the age of 12 can go get an abortion without telling you, has deemed your 17-year-old daughter a minor, and has deemed her a legal risk when it comes to guns, and you have to lock up your guns away from the 17-year-old. Okay, so yeah, they now say that the 17-year-old is too immature to be near a locked gun unless it's in a box with 3 padlocks, a GPS tracker, whatever the hell, right? She's too immature. But, the 12-year-olds, they can definitely go chop their weenus off. Their weenus. I guess I kind of blended that wee-wee, blended that word. They can go chop their wee-wee off in the name of gender equity or gender identity, or they can go get an abortion at the age of 12. They're not too immature for that, but they're way too immature to be near a gun in the house. Okay, let that hypocrisy just sink in for you. Under this law, this is just so hypocritical. So the violation, if you're in violation of the law, it starts at $1,000. But if somebody uses that firearm at a crime, and you didn't even hand it to them, okay, say they broke into your house and stole the gun, okay, out of your lockbox, they can fine you up to $10,000 if that person goes and commits a crime. That's right, folks. You are now legally responsible for what someone else has done. Okay, someone else committed a crime. You, the law-abiding citizen, the victim in this case, who was robbed, which doesn't happen often. The left will try to convince you that people go into people's houses and steal guns all the time. That isn't statistically accurate. Okay, that rarely happens. But when it does, you will now be held legally responsible for what that person does, although you are the victim of a crime. Civil liability for someone else's crime. That's not justice, that's collective punishment. Welcome to Illinois, where the government has more grace for criminals than they do for gun owners. You're probably going to be held more liable than the guy who actually went out and shot somebody in the face with the stolen firearm. Most likely that person is going to get a slap on the wrist and be let out, no cash bail, and he won't even have to answer for his crimes. You're going to have to answer to the tune of $10,000, though, the law-abiding gun owner who was the victim in a crime. So, and for those of you thinking, I'll just pay the fine, don't forget, there's more. A court can order community service as well, on top of the $10,000 in restitution. Okay, so all for exercising your Second Amendment right, having a gun in your house. Okay, that's it. That was your only crime, was having a gun in the house and somebody stealing it from you and disarming you. The state disarms you. Okay. They then will put you to work. Okay. This is 21st century Marxism. What's going on here? And they are all in the business of disarming you and making it not easy to own a firearm. They want to make it as complicated as possible. So that way you just say, it's not worth it here in the state of Illinois to own a firearm. That is what they're hoping they can achieve with this, that you just throw your hands up and you say, it's not worth it. Okay, so here's the kicker. This isn't even really new legal territory, as you heard some of the gun rights advocates say, that the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled on this issue. Okay, DC versus Heller. This is a case. This is a landmark decision, and they made it really clear that requiring a firearm be stored in an inoperable location, like a lockbox, clearly violates the Second Amendment. Okay, it violates your Second Amendment right to self-defense in your home. When a criminal comes in, you need that gun accessible. Okay, so having it on the coffee table is perfectly fine and within your Second Amendment rights. Okay, so Springfield Democrats, they don't care about that, though. They don't care that there's already legal precedent here. There's already, this isn't new legal territory. This is just legal precedent. Like, they've already ruled on this, that you can't mandate people to lock up their guns in their own home. But they don't care about any of that. They've got feelings, not facts. Like I said, statistical analysis will show you that kids aren't getting into gun accidents, okay, like shooting each other in the face in their homes, okay? That's not statistically relevant. People don't come in and usually bust into your home and steal your gun out of a lockbox or steal your gun at all. That's not usually how that works, okay, statistically speaking. They've got emotional appeals, okay, not legal arguments, not sound statistical evidence. John Witkowski of the Illinois Federation of Outdoor Resources testified clearly that this law violates constitutional precedent, as we talked about, DC versus Heller, and he's right. Once your firearm is locked, cable tied, buried in a gun safe 3 rooms away, it's no longer self-defense. Like, you can no longer use that weapon for self-defense anymore. It's a paperweight, essentially. It's wasting space. Okay. So let's be honest. This law isn't about protecting families. It's about making sure gun ownership is inconvenient, and they're hoping that you throw up your hands. And like I said, folks, I used to be of the position that you should have them locked up. My dad always, they weren't locked. They were in safes, but they were stowed away where they weren't visible for guests. Now, we don't do that, and they do it a little bit different in the South, like I said. So we don't do that in my house. We have them on coffee tables, right? Now, we don't have any young children around, and I'm sure it would be different if we did, because they can't comprehend gun safety. You don't want them thinking it's a toy, playing with it. I understand that. But once they get to a certain age, you can definitely teach them gun safety. I know in my house, my brother and I used to play with Nerf guns all of the time. They're fun, but guess what my mom and dad used to do? They used to treat that gun like it was an actual firearm. And they would say, hey, you don't put your finger on the trigger unless you are going to shoot at something. You don't shoot at each other. You don't point the gun at each other. And we treat this play gun like it's the real thing. And we grew up around that, and we had proper gun safety training in my house, and that can be done effectively. And you start out with the Nerf guns, right? That's kind of how my parents did it. You start out with the play guns and squirt guns and things like that. And then you work your way up to the real thing, once you can comprehend and trust the child. That varies depending on the child. But like, that should be all up to us. It should be completely up to us on how we maintain our guns and how we store our guns in our own homes, okay? So let's zoom out. Why would Illinois Democrats want to make life harder for gun owners? Can you answer that question in the comments section? Why would Illinois Democrats want to make life harder for gun owners? The answer is simple for me. They don't believe that you have the right to defend yourself. They just fundamentally don't agree that you have the right to defend yourself. They say trust the government, not God, not the Constitution, and definitely don't rely on yourself. Okay, they just have a very different ideology when it comes to defense. They don't believe in it, quite literally. They think that you should trust the government to come to your aid. And yesterday we talked about the police response times, 10 minutes at the least. Okay, in urban areas, 30 minutes sometimes if you're living in a rural area. So State Representative Maura Hershiser, she's known, like there's certain representatives, and once you start following this stuff, you'll start to catch on pretty quick, who are known for certain things. So State Representative Maura Hershiser is kind of known for gun grabbing. Okay, so she's known for this. She says safe storage is no longer a debate. It's threatening our lives. Oh, really? How many criminals are out there locking up their guns, their illegal guns? Okay, Representative. Law-abiding citizens at the end of the day are going to comply with this law. People who are criminals and want to hurt people, or people who even want to commit suicide, are going to get their hands on some sort of gun. Okay, they're going to get their hands on it. This is just harming law-abiding citizens. This is the same legislature that lets violent criminals, offenders, out on cash bail. No cash bail. They let them out, slap on the wrist. Okay, this is the same legislature who wants to strip school resource officers. Now, I don't think that they've done this at a state level. From what I understand, it's mainly in Chicago, but they don't like the school resource officers. They don't even want the school resource officers in the schools. Okay, because the kid sees the police officer with the gun strapped to his hip. That's bad for their mental health or whatever. And it's like, you're ridiculous. That's the only reason why a mass school shooter would be taken down, or the only person who would be able to take that school shooter down is a police officer who's armed in the school. Okay. So they want to strip the school resource officers out of school. They've pushed that. They've tried to push that at a state level. I don't know if they've been successful with that. I don't think they have been. But they've tried. And remember, this is the same state legislature who's refused to renew that Invest in Kids School Choice program. So let's recap. They want your guns locked up, your kids trapped in failing public schools with no school resource officer. And they want your church quiet on these issues, by the way, on these cultural issues, on these political issues. And you might be thinking to yourself, damn, this sounds pretty familiar. It should sound familiar because it's the same playbook that every totalitarian government uses and has used in history. They disarm the people. They control the children in these public indoctrination camps, these public schools. They don't let you choose the Invest in Kids program, like we talked about earlier in the show. And then they silence the faithful. They silence the pastors. They tell pastors, because of your nonprofit status, you're not allowed to talk about political issues, which is totally a misinterpretation of that. Separation of church and state. They silence the faithful. And this is just a playbook for totalitarian regimes. So there's more to this, though, this law, and we're breaking down this law. It's Senate Bill 8 that he just signed into law. We watched the clip. There's more. So the law changes the stolen gun reporting window. So you used to be able to report your gun within the 72-hour window and not be held liable for, what that gun does while it's stolen, okay? Now they've changed it down from 72 hours to 48 hours. So you have 48 hours to report that gun stolen. Otherwise, you're going to be held liable under the law for what that stolen gun goes out and does. And by that, I mean what the person with the stolen gun goes out and does, because people kill people, not guns. Guns don't kill people. People kill people, right? So if you miss that deadline, you could lose your FOID card. Okay, so 72 hours, it used to be before, you could lose your FOID card if you don't report within that 72 hours that the gun is stolen. Now they've gotten it down to 48 hours. So let's just say you're out of town. Okay, you get home and you realize your gun is gone. It's been 49 hours. Too late. You're already a criminal, and you are going to lose your FOID card because you didn't report it in time, your stolen firearm. It doesn't stop there, though, because get this, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he signed another one, signed House Bill 1373 into law, and this forces law enforcement to use a federal firearm tracing system. Now, this is called E-Trace. Now, this is a federal, ATF uses it, and you probably are thinking to yourself, damn, Kat, that kind of sounds helpful. You could trace guns. Until you realize that this is the same system that the ATF uses, and we know how bad the ATF handles things. They mishandled Fast and the Furious, and now they want a registry of your gun. So Fast and Furious, they mishandled that. And now they want to register your weapons. So you know what this really is? It is an infrastructure for confiscation. They want to confiscate your guns. They want to make it really hard to where you just throw up your hands and you don't own weapons at all. They want to make it easier. Registry builds a map where local law enforcement, they can use this e-tracing thing. And it's like a registry type thing. And this kind of builds the map. The reporting laws tighten the noose. Okay. And the storage requirements are the rope. Okay. So the reporting, like you have to report it within 48 hours. That tightens the noose, but the actual rope itself would be the storage requirements. I mean, totally unconstitutional. I don't know how you can tell people how to store their guns. It's just such a blatant violation of the Second Amendment. Friends, this isn't about safety. It's about submission. You are being conditioned to believe that your rights are conditional. Okay, your Second Amendment right is not conditional. It shall not be infringed. Pretty clear. And they want you to believe that it's conditional, subject to how a sacred politician feels on a certain day. Okay, so they want you to think that this politician, who's mightier than thou, has more and can place these conditions on you and more of a say of what goes on with your rights than God. I mean, these are unalienable rights endowed by a creator, the Second Amendment right. Okay, so if you got to wake up. You got to wake up. If you live in Illinois, join the Illinois State Rifles Association is a good one. Join some of these groups, these support groups, the gun rights groups, okay, who are actively in court trying to squash some of these laws, fight some of these laws, demand that your sheriff not comply with this kind of stuff, okay, not enforce these unconstitutional laws. So above all else, your local sheriff swears an oath to the Constitution, okay, and in there's the Second Amendment right, and by that they are not required to enforce unconstitutional mandates. Okay, so vote out the legislators who signed off on this nonsense, obviously, and most importantly, teach your kids the truth. Gun ownership is not dangerous. Government overreach is. And remember Psalm 144, verse 1. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Okay, so trigger safety, right? It talks about this all in the Bible. Psalm 144. I think it's pretty clear. We don't glorify violence. Nobody glorifies violence. Guns are a tool. Okay, we don't glorify violence in any kind of way, but we do glorify our God-given right to defend life, liberty, and our families from those who seek to harm and control us. Okay, so we do glorify that. And yeah, this is just completely unconstitutional. Let me get to some of your comments. What is your firearm of choice? Glad you asked. Thank you so much for asking. I actually don't like AR-15s. I know. People are going to be like, what? How do you not like AR-15s? I don't like them, actually. So the assault weapons ban, the so-called assault weapons ban, didn't really have an effect on me because I don't use AR-15s, right? Because I don't like them. They're just kind of, I feel like I can't, it's like they're so damn accurate, and I don't like that. I like a big old like double barrel shotgun. And I like it to like rip my shoulder out of my socket. So I have a really cheap like pump action double barrel shotgun that I really like. It's really cheap. It's kind of hard to pump, but I like that one. There is a gun I really like. It's an old gun, and I forget the name of it. I'd have to go look it up, but I think it's a 1911, something like that. I'm not a big fan of like the 9mm. I had a wrist injury, and believe it or not, like the Glocks and the just your regular 9mm, it really hurts like my wrist because of the like it's just not heavy enough. So the heavier the handgun, I tend to like it. But I'm a big shotgun person. Double barrel shotgun. I love like just putting big old holes in the target. So it doesn't necessarily have to be accurate. It just has to have like a can. Like I'd love to shoot a cannon. I think that's what at the end of the day, that's my preferred choice. Shooting a cannon and just making it to where the target is just sprayed with buckshot. Which I mean, that's my preferred. I'm not a big fan of the AR-15s, which is odd. A lot of people are like, what? How do you not like AR-15s? They are incredibly accurate, but like there is no like recoil. There is no like, whoa, like they're just very and like it's so funny that people have made AR-15s like as scary, like these big scary guns, like they're like assault weapons, but they're like the weakest gun in my opinion. Like I don't know, like they're just not fun. I like the shotguns. Anyway, so let's shift gears. I'm going to take a quick break and we are going to come back. And I do want to talk about this committee member. Now, this is in New Jersey. I think I said New York earlier. This is in New Jersey. Sorry. This is a guy. He is a committee member. His name is Matt Scott, and a total jackwagon. He says that, hey, I'm not the bad guy here, okay, for going after the Henry family farm. Now, I've done this story before because it's gotten national attention. Even the Trump administration has talked about this family. Andy Henry's family has owned this farmland in New Jersey for over 2,000 years, and now the town is threatening to seize that via eminent domain to build affordable housing. Okay, so we're going to talk about Matt Scott because he says, I'm not the bad guy because, wait for it, it's for the greater good, taking this generational, this farm that has been around for 2,000 years. It is for the greater good of affordable housing. So we are going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, this is Conservative Cat Clips, and this is the place where we remind you that your children come from God and they don't come from the Department of Education. The government wants to raise your kids. They want to feed them breakfast. They want to tell them about gender ideology and gender identity as young as kindergarten. They want to start them out really early. They want to tell your kids how many pronouns they should have, and they want your kids to learn all the pronouns by the age of 3rd grade. Okay. Meanwhile, they can't keep bathrooms clean in their schools. They can't keep their test scores up, reading, writing, and arithmetic. They can't keep those scores above sea level. The truth here is that bureaucrats don't love their kids. They don't know their quirks, their fears, their hearts, and they certainly don't care what the Bible says about fearing or about raising them and fearing the Lord. Okay, so in Psalm 127, verse 3, children are a heritage from the Lord, not a project for the state, not a cultural science experiment. They are your responsibility, your blessing, and your mission. Okay, but what happens if you step in and they say, I'll take it from here? Okay, and what happens when you step in and say, hey, I'm actually going to take responsibility and I'm going to participate in raising my child? You show up to the school board meetings, you ask about the curriculum, you object to Drag Queen Story Hour and Drag Queen Library Story Hour and all of these pornographic books in the libraries. What happens when you say, I'm going to take it from here, I'm going to start participating in my mission and my responsibility in raising up my child? You are deemed a domestic terrorist. Okay, if you start showing up and if you actually start taking responsibility over raising your child. You are dangerous to democracy. They'll say that. And they'll say that all because you just started loving your kid enough to be involved. So we've normalized this idea that parents should just hand over their kids for 8 hours a day and play catch up over a microwave dinner and try to catch up on who your kid actually is. Your kids are strangers. That's not parenting, that's outsourcing. So the product here is a generation that is anxious, that is confused, and they are spiritually hollow. What if we flipped the script? Really, what if we turned off the screens, cracked open a Bible, and actually parented the way Deuteronomy 6 tells us to parent, at home and all of the time? And I think that our future of the country actually depends on this. And I hope that we start parenting like our future, and like the future of the country depends on it, because it does. So don't be intimidated. God gave you those kids for a reason. Raise them up in truth, teach them real values, and never hand over this sacred duty to the folks who say remote learning is the way to go, or gender identity, you can identify as whatever the hell you want. Don't hand over that sacred duty of parenting and raising your children to people who are just wacky weirdos. You can raise your children, and you are required to raise your children because they are a gift from God, and He's bestowed a sacred duty on you as a parent. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you being here this morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel while you're here. Leave it to a chick to want an aggressive, crazy mess of a gun over an accurate, well-ordered piece of machinery. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fight you on that. My husband likes the AR-15. I'm not a big fan because it is super accurate. I just want like a cannonball, right? That's not incredibly accurate. I mean, this is like a real cheap double barrel shotgun that I like to shoot when I'm out on the range, and it just hurts my shoulder a little bit. And I like how much of a mess it makes on the on the paper there. So yeah, I'm a woman, what can I say? Okay, so I do like the other one that I like is the 1911 pistol. I had to look it up and make sure that I had the name right. I'm not a big like into the names or anything. I just like the stuff that makes the big boom, and I like to go out on the range. I'm not really into it as much as maybe other people. So if I get something wrong, don't yell at me. But the 1911 pistol, so this is I like it because it's a heavier handgun and there's not a ton of recoil. Like I said, I had broke my wrist a while back, and I find that like these like more plasticky like Glocks, they like throw my wrist back a little bit, and it's harder to shoot when I'm out on the range. But anyway, good morning. I appreciate you being here, Lisa. Haven't seen you in a little while. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday. We are going to be talking about the Henry family this morning, so we're going straight there. We covered this earlier this year because the story went national. The Trump administration had commented on this. Andy Henry's family has owned this farmland in New Jersey for close to 2,000 years. Okay, that's incredible, amazing. That's kind of unheard of nowadays. Okay, so the town is now threatening this property, or threatening to seize this property to build affordable housing using eminent domain. So they want to seize the property via eminent domain, and they want to build affordable housing. So I want you to meet this fella. His name is Matt Scott, a complete jackwagon, in my opinion. He says, hey, look, I'm not a bad guy, okay? I'm not a bad guy. I am not awful for wanting to take the Henry family farm, or being pro taking the Henry family farm, because at the end of the day, the government needs to seize it for the greater good. This is what he says. Let's meet this fella, Matt Scott. Now, he is a committee member. Now, this isn't like your even your state assemblyman. This isn't like your congressman. This is just your low-level local government committee member. So let's take a look.
What kinds of things do people say?
Can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay. You fucking commie libtards, you think you're doing, you're not American, you're just, stealing from the taxpayer, you need to give that farm back.
This is a story about a fight over a farm in New Jersey that turned a small town's housing issue into a national headline. This is Andy Henry's family farm, and his family has owned this property for generations, since before the Civil War.
But what we're working on now is what the town wants to make into housing.
It's kind of hard to imagine.
I don't want to imagine it. It's hard to think about.
Now, the town wants about half of the 21 acres for affordable housing. In New Jersey, each town has a requirement of how much affordable housing they have to provide. So the township sent Andy and his family a letter offering to buy this property or threatening to seize it via eminent domain if they can't reach a deal.
It was a shock.
Andy started a campaign to save his family farm. It divided the town.
Shame on Matt, shame on Robert, shame on Deborah, shame on...
And became a MAGA rallying cry. Even the Trump administration got involved. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins called it a Biden-style government takeover and called Henry on the phone.
I don't blame people. People are pissed. They feel like the governing structures are not listening. All they hear is that this, 5 Democrat member committee in this town is seizing this hardworking farmer's, family legacy. I think it's an easy target for people.
Matt Scott is part of the committee that helped pick the farm site. He says strict state requirements for affordable housing sites really limited the options.
I felt terrible. I was like, wow, I didn't know we were doing this. There has to be another option. We vetted all these properties, and this is what we're stuck with. None of us wanted to eminent domain a farm. Had no desire to do that. If they don't want to sell, that's kind of where we're at.
Do you feel like the bad guy in this story?
No, I don't. I empathize 100% with the Henry brothers, but again, I feel like the greater good is what my responsibility is towards.
The plan is now with a state judge. If the town takes the land, it will have to pay market value, but there's still a chance someone could come forward with a Hail Mary solution to save the farm. Do you think you're going to win this fight?
I do think so. My ancestors are kind of still here. When I walk these fields, I kind of feel their presence. But that's why we don't want to give it up. It's just like a part of us, That's all I can say. It's just a part of us.
Wow. Oh, when I watch that, it's just so heartbreaking. Andy Henry and his brother Christopher, inherited the property in 2012, and they've been turning down buyout offers since then. Okay, tens of millions of dollars in buyout offers. They invested $200,000 in it already. These brothers. Now, that's not to even touch or scratch the surface of what's been invested in this from the prior generations. This is just Andy and Christopher. They've invested $200,000 into this farm. And it's become a very popular attraction that unites the neighborhood. So their farm is now leased for raising cattle. They lease it for farmers to come raise their cattle and their sheep. The town loves driving by and seeing something besides warehouses, in New Jersey. And they're trying to keep the legacy intact and passing it to the next generation. And the Bible commands us to pass an inheritance, by the way. This is why the libtards, and I will call them that, the libtards, this is why they hate it. This is why they want to take it via eminent domain, because at the core of every leftist, they are just anti-Christian. So the Bible commands us to leave an inheritance to the next generation. And they don't like that. They don't want you to do that, because they're anti-Christian and they want to be the antithesis of what the Bible says. And, that is and always will be their plan, the Henry family. They will not sell. So in the grand scheme of things, this story is insane because it's exactly who the left is. Socialists, communists, libtards. They don't like private property. They don't like you passing on anything to the next generation because the Bible commands it of you, and they don't want you to fulfill that commandment of God. And they want the state to own everything. Okay, that is what the core of a socialist is all about. And in the smaller scheme of things, here's Exhibit A on the importance of local elections. Okay, this is file this under, hey, why should I vote in my local election? In Andy Henry's story. You should bookmark this story, bookmark this episode, and this should be your reason why to go vote in local elections. Now, you might vote in your big elections, your presidential elections, and we're all kind of focused on the New York City elections, okay, or the New York City mayor's race. And like, that's important, but it is a city thing. And it turns out if you don't pay attention in your suburbs, if you don't pay attention in your rural communities, you wind up getting a council member who says things like, oh, I'm in the business of the greater good. Okay. And I'm not the bad guy for taking and seizing property from somebody for affordable housing. Okay. Do you know your local city councilman? Do you even know your assemblyman? Do you know your state senator, your state representative? Do you know them? Do you know if they are in the business of destroying where you live, destroying your private property rights for their political agenda, which is the greater good, right? Claiming it's for the greater good. Do you know where they line up politically? I know my state assemblyman. I know some of my local, I moved here semi-recently and need to get better about it. I know some of my local board members and councilmen. And I need to get better at it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not great at knowing everybody. But I need to get better because these suburbs or these local communities, what they will do is they will change zoning laws. And it's happening all over the country. And they're taking private property or they're destroying your property values. We've talked with people in this program about the town of Normal. I know all of the, locals, councilmen, and I'm aware of all of their political positions in McLean County. Like I said, I just moved to Lincoln not that long ago. I got to get better about it. And I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit more red than McLean County. So I've been asleep at the wheel. And I shouldn't be, because there are, red counties that will do this. There are red municipalities that will do this kind of stuff, like take your private property. So in specifically Normal, the town of Normal and city of Bloomington, I've noticed and talked with people who've lived there now, how they are coming in and they're changing zoning and they are destroying property values by putting multifamily housing right up next to single family housing. And they're changing the look and the feel of the town and of the community, all in the name of the greater good, right? And you need to know who's representing you on a local level. And if you don't know who's representing you on a local level, you need to change it so that way you do know who's representing you on a local level. It should be everybody's goal that their councilman is their friend, because it's less likely that your friend is going to burn you. You should try to make it a goal to befriend your councilman. And if they are not your friends, and if you could not possibly be friends with the people who are on your council, then you need to change it and make it to where your friends are on the council and people who think like you, people who are like you. Specifically, you need Christians on your councils and on your county boards, Christians. And your pastors should be getting involved and letting you know who the Christians are, who the strong Christians are on your ballot. Okay, now, I want to see where I want to go. We've got about 30 minutes left. I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker's speech in North Carolina. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. A speech, mind you, which is probably way more about his White House dreams than they are about his job performance here in the land of Lincoln, despite him running for governor in 2026. This is clearly a speech that he delivered to talk about his White House aspirations and, to make it look like he's on the national stage. Okay. So coming up, I'm going to be talking about Governor J.B. Pritzker's speech in North Carolina. And then a little bit later, I think I am going to get to this Sweeney thing. I talked about Sweeney a little bit earlier in the week, Sydney Sweeney. So the left has completely become outraged over this, and they're calling Sydney Sweeney a fascist propagandist, a Nazi propagandist, because she did this American Eagle commercial. Sydney Sweeney, beautiful woman. She's got blonde hair. She's straight, right? Heterosexual, which naturally the TikTokers, the leftists, are going to scream about this. And really anything that collectively America likes, the left hates. Okay, so let me give you an example. Fireworks, eating meat, okay, working out. Collectively, if Americans enjoy doing something, the Democrats and the media will find something racist about it or find something wrong about it. Okay, so Sydney Sweeney, they are coming after her and they're throwing around a bunch of ists and isms. You're a racist, you're a propaganda, or Nazism, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I here will not slander Sydney Sweeney. Am I a fan of her sexualized commercials? You know, we talked about the soap thing, okay, the bath water, and she's in the bubbles and things, and it's a sexualized commercial, but it's not nearly as bad as what Demi Lovato, Jojo Siwa, Miley Cyrus has done in the past, where they've, quite literally swung on wrecking balls, like Miley Cyrus's music video where she's swinging on a wrecking ball and like deep throating a hammer, okay, in this music video. And it's actually got sex appeal, which is why I think that the left hates Sydney Sweeney, because she has actual sex appeal and she's not this angry feminist. And I will say that I think that she is an American treasure, and that we are finally in America understanding that there is an objective standard to beauty. And I'm not against that. As a Christian, I don't like sex appeal in my commercials. I just don't think it's necessary. If you have a stellar product, if it's a superior product, sell me on the product and what it does. I don't need the sex appeal to go along with it. It just doesn't work on me as a Christian. But we've survived Pride Month. Okay, we're in July now, at the end of July, believe it or not. And we were gifted a Sydney Sweeney ad where she's in the bathtub. We were also gifted this ad. I actually really like the American Eagle ad. It's a pretty good ad, and they say that she's got good genes, and it's a play on word because she's beautiful and she does have good genes objectively, right? You can say like somebody has good genes objectively and not be a racist for that. There is an objective standard to beauty. And I would say Sydney Sweeney has good genes. She's got great bone structure. She's got a pretty face, beautiful hair, nice eye color. Objectively, she's beautiful. So we were gifted this ad, and we're finally got past Pride Month, and we're finally understanding that there is an objective standard to beauty, and what Sydney Sweeney is selling sells. Okay. Because there's an objective standard to beauty, and we all understand that, and it works. Okay, so the American Eagle ad is pretty good, but naturally you're going to get the they/thems out there on TikTok, and they're going to start screaming at the sky, calling this fascist propaganda, because they used this play on word, like she's got great genes, and it's a jeans ad, like a jeans, like a blue jeans ad. And the left is melting down over it. So we're going to get to that as well this morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Lisa, I'm glad you had I hope it was a great vacation. Let me know in the comments where you went. Reminder, New Jersey has state elections this fall on November 4th. Reminder, everybody. So we were talking about New Jersey. You have to make sure you're putting your friends, and specifically Christians, in local government. I'll be right back. Smash that like button. Hey, you're listening to the Conservative Cat Clips. This is the place where we don't call 911 first. Nope, we pray, we prepare, and yes, we pack heat. Every time there's a tragedy, the media and the Democrats, they start crying, do something, and do something. And what they mean is more laws, more bans, and more restrictions, not on criminals, mind you, but on law-abiding citizens. So let me tell you what evil doesn't care about. They don't care about legislation. The man willing to break the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder, doesn't blink twice at your AR-15 ban. Okay, he doesn't read your gun-free zone signs. He sees those signs and he says, this is an invitation for me. Gun control doesn't stop evil. It disarms good people. The founding fathers didn't give us the Second Amendment so we could go hunting. They gave us the Second Amendment to protect ourselves against tyrants, both foreign and domestic. And newsflash, tyrants don't tend to announce themselves. They come wearing smiles and waving around fancy policies. And I also want to talk about self-defense today. Self-defense. The average police response time in big cities like Chicago could be up to 10 minutes, sometimes even longer. I know the Chicago PD is really struggling with that. Response times in rural areas, it could get up to even 30 minutes response time. So if somebody kicks down your door, are you going to ask them to wait until the government sends backup to protect you, or are you going to protect your family and take matters into your own hands? So grandma, okay, in Peoria, Illinois, she is just trying to defend her property, but yet she's the one treated like a criminal. She has to go through all kinds of crazy background checks, permits, training. And the thug in Chicago, he gets the gun out of his trunk in an alley, and he didn't think twice about our laws, okay? It's about power. It always has been. Every dictatorship in history has disarmed their citizens first. First, that's Stalin, that's Hitler, that's Mao. They didn't want competition. And once the guns were gone, so were the rights, the freedom, and the people. So a disarmed people is a controlled people. But an armed, faithful, and free people, that is a nightmare for tyrants. And really, it's a blessing to your neighbors if you are armed. The Second Amendment isn't outdated. It's eternal. And just like evil, just like our right, just like the evil has the right to do evil things and that they will, we have the right to resist evil and to arm ourselves. And the Second Amendment is pretty dang clear, shall not be infringed. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you being here. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Sydney Sweeney, like I said, she's got blonde hair, blue eyes. She is the current smoke show spokesperson, I guess, for American Eagle. She did this American Eagle ad, and it said something like, Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. And it's a jeans ad, and there's this old time car, and I really liked the commercial. There was a nostalgic factor to it. Question for you, Kat. Did you buy the American Eagle jeans because of the Sydney Sweeney ad? I like Sydney Sweeney because she's beautiful, and I'm glad that we are finally in America realizing that there is an objective standard to beauty, and I like that we're reflecting that in our advertisement. But the sex appeal, it really doesn't work on me. It's not for me. I would imagine for a teenage girl, this would really work. Okay. The American Eagle ad. The way I buy jeans is very different. I look at the jeans and I say to myself, are there harmful dyes or chemicals in the jeans? Is it 100% cotton? Or is there harmful dyes that would be carcinogens, to me? That is how I buy products. So I'm kind of an oddball in that, where I don't really get the whole sex appeal. So Sydney Sweeney is not for me. Really what Sydney Sweeney is for, I believe, is for teenage girls who maybe aren't as plugged in as maybe I am to, the Maha movement. That is how I buy all my products. Is it good for me? And will it benefit my life? So I have a very high standard when it comes to dress. An American made, yes, 100% is an American made. That is how I kind of buy my products. So the whole Sydney Sweeney's butt looking great in jeans isn't really for me. I think that it's for the teenage girls who want to look a certain way to boys in their school. Okay. So it's not for me, but I am glad that we are finally recognizing that there is an objective standard to beauty and objective standard of beauty, and that is reflective in our commercials. And I think that we are, the pendulum is swinging back to reality. Okay. Now I want to share this with you because, of course, all the libtards, they got on social media, and I don't know why these people populate in my feed. It's really annoying. I really wish I didn't see this stuff, but I get all the they thems in my feed, my social media feed. So I saw this on X, and I don't know, maybe Elon Musk is like paying grifters and these anonymous accounts run by bot farms for engagement purposes to, these chuckleheads, they get thrusted into my timeline because they're bots and it boosts engagement, right? And that's what he wants on his platform, is an insane amount of engagement. This video has gotten millions of views. And it's really just a chucklehead. I'm just going to call her a chucklehead, who feels a certain way about Sydney Sweeney. She thinks that being blonde, being objectively beautiful, and having a nice car in this ad, which is the American Eagle ad, that equates to Nazi propaganda. And I want to be clear, this chucklehead and all of the they thems on the internet, they are a very small portion of the internet. Okay, very, very small. But the problem here is the American media, largely still, although it's getting better, the mainstream media, 98% of the mainstream media are people who think like this chucklehead I'm about to play in this clip, and they all have this same radical progressive ideology. And instead of ignoring these silly people, the media, the mainstream, because they think like they do, they uplift these silly people and they report on this stuff, and they create headlines like, quote, is Sydney Sweeney a white supremacist dog whistle? And this actually becomes a serious news story. And that's where it starts to get problematic. I wouldn't even mind like just these silly chuckleheads being on the internet if we could just largely ignore them, because people are going to have their takes. Okay. And she's allowed to have her take. That's fine. What I start to get pissed about is when this stuff is reported on as a actual serious news story. And the reason for that is because the mainstream media, 98% of the mainstream media, they hold this same radical progressive ideology as these silly people on the internet. So let's take a listen to this. Here we go.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's still really shocking. Like, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda. Should we be surprised?
Okay, I'll tell you what Nazi propaganda is, by the way. Margaret Sanger, okay, the actual eugenicist who created Planned Parenthood, and they execute abortions, and Black women largely disproportionately get abortions more than white women. And this is the slow eradication of the Black population. So the Dems are actually the eugenicists. Don't you forget it. But the phrase great genes. Okay, so let me get to this serious news article. And I'm just going to quote it right here. Okay, and this is where I start to get pissed, because it's like it's gone off of just it's gone off the rails here from just silly people on the internet with their hot takes, and now it's becoming a serious news story. The phrase great genes is historically used to celebrate whiteness, thinness, and attractiveness, which is said made this campaign seem to be tone deaf marketing move, which it is said that this is a campaign that is a tone deaf marketing move. This is a Salon report that I'm reading from, a Salon report, I think it is. Hang on. Let me double check and make sure I've got my means. No, Daily Mail. They've got this article that I'm quoting from. Yeah. And it's just mainstream media reporting on this. Outraged fans penned, so Sydney and American Eagle somehow expect audiences to not interpret this visual as a euphemism for eugenics and white supremacy. Yeah, I didn't interpret it as a euphemism for eugenics. Okay, objectively, there is something known as good genes. Okay, for example, Michael Jordan or some of these star athletes, basketball players. Okay, I would say that the African American population, they have superior genes when it comes to the gene of being tall, okay, which affords them the ability to play in sports and be very, very good at it. Okay, so objectively, the African American community, they have, or the African American population, they have a gene that makes them taller and makes them therefore superior to white people when it comes to sports. Okay, not that they're superior than white people, but they have a gene that makes them better at sports. Okay, I'm just saying. Like, I think that that's pretty objective. Is that racist to say? I mean, I don't think so, right? I would just say, well, Black people tend to be a little bit better at sports because they have those genes. That doesn't mean that I hate white people. It's just an objective fact. Okay. So I did not interpret this as like a white supremacy thing, like her saying she has good genes. Like, objectively, having straight hair, having, you know, these pretty eyes, a nice bone structure that makes her objectively beautiful. She has good genes. Okay. I didn't think that that was a bad thing to say. I don't know why it is a bad thing to say. Sydney Sweeney, American Eagle ad campaign. This is what the article says. The American Eagle ad campaign is just modern day Nazi propaganda. Like, it's wild how blatant it is. Things are just weird right now, man. So that's what somebody had said about the ad. And they're quoted in a serious news article, which is why I'm so upset about this story, because it's gone from silly people on the internet being outraged to being reported as serious news articles. And, you know, like, I hope that Sydney Sweeney doesn't like let this stuff get her down. She is supposed to be on some sort of press tour for a movie that she's supposed to be in. Christy Martin, I guess she's a boxer. She's supposed to be participating in a movie about Christy Martin, and she's going to be playing Christy. And entertainment reporters, not unlike sports reporters, hate talking about entertainment when they have a progressive agenda to advance. Okay, so all reporters, they hate talking about entertainment. They hate talking about sports. They hate talking about actual news when they have a political agenda to advance. When they have a political agenda to advance, they'd much rather talk about that than actual entertainment. So most likely, while she's on this press tour, they're going to make it about this ad, American Eagle ad, and not about the actual entertainment, not about the actual movie that she's going to be starring in. And I just hope that the filmmakers, the people who are surround her, PR people who are surrounding her, that they stay on her side and they don't throw her to the wolves, because we've seen that happen, where they take the progressive side and they bend the knee to these screaming at the sky libtards. And I hope that they don't like catch her off guard where she says something and they take it out of context and then they use that something that she said and they get clicks off of it, because it would just be so sad, because like, she's objectively beautiful and Americans seem to be liking her commercials. I personally don't, because it doesn't work on me, the sex appeal just in general. Like I said, I am a much different consumer than probably your mainstream consumer. So this kind of stuff doesn't work on me. That being all said, I hope that these pathetic attempts don't take down Sydney Sweeney's career. I think that it's a good thing that we are recognizing objective beauty and that there are standards to beauty, and we should celebrate those things. God gave us beauty to enjoy, okay? And she's a very beautiful girl, and I think that can be just a factual statement. Anyway, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Good morning. I appreciate you guys being here. I figure guys will go out and buy all kinds of jeans. Yeah, I don't know if this ad is really targeted towards men. What I really think it is, it's targeted towards young girls who want to look like Sydney Sweeney. American Eagle is just kind of like a teenager brand in general. I don't shop at American Eagle. Most older women don't shop at American Eagle. And I think that this is for a very specific type of audience, the teenage girl who wants to be beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't work on me. It never really worked on me when I was a kid either, because I was more interested in, being a tomboy and hanging out with my twin brother and, fishing and, wearing his gym shorts because I was a tomboy. So I wasn't really all that interested in Sydney Sweeney or like people like Sydney Sweeney at that time. Like Megan Fox probably would have been my time, wanting to look more like her. I just was never really interested in that. But it's really, I think the target audience is young females who want to be beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. This talk of eugenics is weird, referencing a Gene commercial. Yeah, it is. I just don't think that the genes comment, she's got good genes. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Like, if somebody has a good looking nose, I'll say, oh, you've got some good genes on you, or you got your nose from your dad. It's a nice nose, you know what I mean? Or your eyes are beautiful. That's something that your parents passed on to you, and objectively, your eyes are beautiful, and you've got good genes. There's nothing wrong with that, and they're being funny where they're playing on the genes, like the blue genes, and they're playing on words. And I think it's funny. People are just, I wasn't all that interested. I was interested in guns growing up. Yeah, Nerf guns. Yeah, it was all about the Nerf guns. I was trying to get into my brother's BB guns. Shockingly, in my childhood, my dad never let me around the BB guns. When he never let the girls around the BB guns, and he always bought my twin brother the BB guns, like the fun guns. I got to play with Nerf guns, and I was always taught gun safety and everything, but I never actually was gifted, like at Christmas time, BB guns, and I was really upset about that. So yeah, I was more interested about that rather than the jeans I was wearing. So I've never really been somebody to pitch like the sex appeal or anything like that to. I've just never been that type of consumer. But there are consumers out there who like the Sydney Sweeney ad and who will go out and buy the jeans because of the Sydney Sweeney ad. And there is a bit of nostalgia there in the ad with the car and everything like that, which I enjoyed just visually. I thought it was fun. I thought it was just a well put together ad. Anyway, all right, let me shift gears. I want to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker here because we have got to talk about his North Carolina campaign stop, I guess, is what I'm going to call it. Now, he's a billionaire heir who's been governor of Illinois since 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker. And he was the keynote speaker. And I talked a little bit about his speech in North Carolina yesterday, but this was the Democrats' unity dinner. Hilarious unity. LOL, that's rich coming from a man who's presiding probably arguably over one of the most divided states in the Midwest or in the nation. It's so fascinating to me when you go to southern states, there is no such thing as Black communities. Like when you go into places like Chicago, there is Black areas, okay, or minority areas. And I've only ever seen that in blue states where there's actual segregation based on your race. Okay, I've only ever seen that in blue states. When you go down south, it doesn't really matter. You've got Black neighbors, white neighbors, Mexican neighbors, and there's not these like little pockets. I've only ever seen that in blue states. And Illinois, I think, is a huge culprit where you have like white wine moms, the white suburbs, or you have the ghetto, and the ghetto is where the Black community resides. And it's so fascinating to me because this is a state that, it screams from the rooftops. You've got Democrats who scream from the rooftops, equity, equality, diversity, right? But yet we're all very segregated and there is no unity. Now in states like, South Carolina, Georgia even, or Florida, you don't have these like little pockets of communities separated by race. It's quite fascinating. Anyway, so this is a guy who said he's inspired by how North Carolina Democrats are focused on rural communities. Hold up. Let me get this straight. Governor J.B. Pritzker is impressed by another state's efforts to win back rural votes. While here at home, I want to make this clear, write this number down, 33 Illinois counties have voted to secede from the state. Okay. And they're not all rural counties. I want to make that clear. A lot of these counties are northern counties, central Illinois counties. You heard that right. 1/3 of our counties, because there's 120, I think, or no, 102 counties. They want a divorce from Illinois. Okay. And Pritzker is down in North Carolina sipping sweet tea and praising the Democrats in North Carolina for their rural outrage. Okay, so let me kind of put this into perspective for you. That's like your house being on fire, you going to your neighbor's place and complimenting their fire alarm system. Okay, that's like, I just find it so fascinating because he has no rule, like all the rural voters hate this guy and would never vote for Governor J.B. Pritzker. And he's going there and he's complimenting a different state on their rural voters and getting their rural voters out for the Democrats. Now, folks, this wasn't leadership. He wasn't going there to inspire. He was auditioning. This is a governor who took a swipe at ICE, by the way, while he was there in North Carolina. So these are the brave men and women who are securing our borders, enforcing our immigration laws. And I couldn't believe this, but Governor J.B. Pritzker called it wrong to snatch someone off of the street and ship them to a foreign gulag. And then he insulted Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, and he called her Ice Barbie. Number one, sexist. Two, just terrible. These are men and women who put their lives on the line to secure our border and enforce our immigration laws. And you're going to call the Secretary of Homeland Security Ice Barbie? What? So you might disagree with ICE on a policy ground. You might disagree with certain policies of the Trump administration when it comes to immigration, but reducing our security efforts and reducing members of this administration and insulting them and calling them Ice Barbie, this is terrible and not professional in any kind of way. But I guess that's what you get when you've got a taxpayer-funded jet. Mockery comes cheaper than solutions. So he is mocking because he's got no true solution to immigration reform. And instead of reforming immigration and, not providing free health care to illegal immigrants simply because they border jump, not providing them free legal aid at the taxpayer's expense. Instead of addressing all of that, he'd much rather just throw insults at Kristi Noem and ICE. Let's not forget Pritzker welcomed illegal border crossers in Illinois. He's the guy who rolled out the red carpet essentially for them. Meanwhile, we have a budget that's very strained. We have a pension debt, $145 billion. Chicago shelters are overrun. Crime is soaring, but don't worry. He got a laugh line in North Carolina when he called Kristi Noem Ice Barbie. Okay, so Kathy Selfie, the Illinois GOP chair, she said, I bet she's quoted in the Center Square, Pritzker is a lawbreaker for encouraging illegal immigration. She's absolutely right. At the end of the day, that's what he is. He's a lawbreaker for encouraging illegal immigration. Now let's talk economics. Because in the same speech given in North Carolina, Pritzker slammed Donald Trump's tax policies, claiming that MAGA Republicans want to cut taxes for the rich and take away health care from working class families. But get this, just days before the speech, Governor J.B. Pritzker gave $5.3 million in tax credits to quantum computing company called Inflection. So this is a glitzy tech company. He loves to do this. He's done it to Goshen, Rivian, several other tech companies. Okay, these are glitzy, glamorous tech companies, and they get these sweetheart deals. And meanwhile, your small business is drowning in regulation, crime, inflation. And, it's not just Inflection, it's IBM, it's PSI Quantum, all of these companies he picks as winners, which ultimately don't wind up being winners a lot of the time. They get tens of millions of dollars in incentives to set up shop in Chicago. And let's face it, it sounds like a Star Trek set, really. So, and it costs taxpayers like it's a Star Trek set. And a lot of them are even startups. So there is no proven, like, hey, we are providing a product that people want. A lot of these companies that we provide, that Governor J.B. Pritzker provides these sweetheart deals for, they are startups and they aren't really winners. So he's picking winners and losers with your tax dollars, essentially like investing, like it's an episode of Shark Tank, right? So Governor J.B. Pritzker's message is very clear. If you're a multinational corporation, a glitzy tech company, Illinois is open for business. But if you're a farmer, a server, a mechanic, which the BBB, a lot of these tax credits or a lot of these tax breaks, they're for those types of people, servers, mechanics. If you're a small town parent just trying to get your kid to a decent school with that educational tax credit, the federal one, that program, good luck, right? If you're any of those types of people, this is not the state for you. If you're a multinational corporation, a tech company, a startup into quantum computing, Illinois is open for business. It's complete hypocrisy, and it just bothers me that he says he's for the working class when just like days ago he provided all kinds of sweetheart deals to this multinational company. And he didn't mention this pesky little detail in his North Carolina speech, which I found absolutely hilarious. 33 counties have considered splitting from Illinois. Okay, and this is no longer like, oh yeah, people want to secede from Illinois. Like, that's funny. Like, this is a serious thing. If they get any closer, there's a certain threshold, and I forget the number of counties that have to get on board. But if there's a certain number of counties that eventually want to secede, they have to take it seriously. So, I mean, we're getting closer and closer to that number. I forget what the number is. I have to look that up. But these rural communities are getting tired of being ignored. They're sick of Chicago dictating the rest of the state's policies. They're fed up with the high taxes, the woke indoctrination in our schools, being lectured by city elites on how they're supposed to live, how they're supposed to store their guns. Okay. Pritzker didn't mention any of this in North Carolina, of course, but he wants to export Illinois' Democrat strategy. Okay, that's what the whole speech was about. And he doesn't even really want to fix the chaos at home, or didn't even really talk about the chaos that he's dealing with back at home. He claims to support rural communities, yet he passed, of course, climate policies that have crushed farmers, that are destroying our grid. The Climate Equitable Jobs Act is destroying our grid. He supports education mandates that don't reflect local values, like putting tampon dispensers in boys' bathrooms, right? That doesn't reflect a lot of local values. Comprehensive sex education, a lot of that doesn't reflect our local values in rural areas. He uses rural Illinois as a bank account for urban votes. Okay, so these rural counties are subsidizing these urban areas. For example, the 150 delivery tax that they were talking about, they didn't actually implement that. Now they're talking about the real estate transfer tax. But we're going to supplement the budget hole of the CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority, these buses and the trains and things like that, the public transportation up in these urban areas. You and I, the rural counties, are going to be subsidizing that. And essentially, we're a bank account to him. And he's buying these urban votes like, hey, we provided you the X, Y, and Z dollars or this grant, or we saved the CTA, vote for us, and the only reason why they were able to save the CTA was because of the rural counties being used as a bank account. So this governor, if this governor really respected our state's diversity, he'd be visiting Effingham, some of these southern counties. He doesn't visit them. He hobnobs in North Carolina with his eyes set, obviously, on 2028, that gubernatorial run, or that presidential run. I think he's got his eyes set on the White House. That's why he's hobnobbing in North Carolina. Now, he has been other places as well. So I'm talking New Hampshire. He's been to Florida. So he's not really acting like a guy who wants to win his gubernatorial race in Illinois. If he was acting like that, he would want the gubernatorial position. He would be campaigning and stopping in places like Effingham. He says he's running for governor again in 2026, but he hasn't promised to serve a full term. And here's the question every Illinois voter must be asking. Is this guy working for us, or is he working for his national donors? Is he striving for something bigger? Is he striving for the White House? I think he is, because look at his Think Big organization. This is a political organization that has gotten amendments or referendums for abortion in states like Florida. So he's playing at a national scale or on a national level. Meanwhile, there are Republican challengers rising. I'm not a big fan of any of these Republican challengers. Now, there have been whispers about a Dan Ugasti. I think I'd vote for him over these two candidates, the DuPage County Sheriff James Mendrick. There was a guy, Joseph Areno. I would never vote for this guy, Joseph Areno, or James Mendrick. I don't think I'd vote for either of them. So I hope that we wind up with more options. There were whispers about Dan Ugasti, who is a current state representative. I think I'd vote for him. I really want, he declined to run for governor. Interesting. See, I didn't catch that. Thank you for sharing that with me. There were whispers, but apparently he declined. Thanks for sharing that with me. I didn't know. I just want there to be a good candidate. Maybe it's because Don Tracy, I don't know. There's rumor about Don Tracy running. I just want somebody good. And maybe I'm spoiled because I really like Darren Bailey as a candidate. You need people who are out there professing their faith, Christians who are running for especially these statewide offices. This is a really important office, the governor's office. All offices, your local level, your councilmen, they should be Christians above all else, and they should be professing that very boldly. And that's something that Darren Bailey did. And I just think that it's going to be hard to find a candidate that, is even close to what Darren Bailey was like. So Illinois deserves a good governor. We do. Not one who is halfway out the door, by the way. And that is what Governor J.B. Pritzker is doing. He is just halfway out the door. Clearly, he's stopping in places like New Hampshire, Florida, and now North Carolina. If he was serious about his run in 2026 for the gubernatorial position, then he would be stopping in places like Effingham if he really gave a damn about these rural counties. Like he talked about, that he was just so he admired North Carolina for, because they're just so good with the rural voters. So we need somebody who's going to support law enforcement, number one, not mock it with things like the SAFE-T Act. We need somebody who's going to stand up for rural Illinois and not use it as a talking point in another state. We need somebody who's going to lower taxes. And that's why I was so excited about Dan Ugasti. For all that I disagree with Dan Ugasti, like definitely not somebody that I agree with politically and probably is much more moderate than I am. One thing that he was serious about was lowering taxes, and knew a thing or two about was lowering taxes and not handing out credits to billionaires. I think that he would have been a decent option. We need somebody who's going to back American workers, not foreign nationals. Now, who would be good at that? Mary Miller would be really good at that. She has kind of led the fight here on not allowing these foreign nationals to cross our border illegally, but also this land grab that has been going on in Illinois, where these Chinese nationals are coming in and they're buying up our farmland, our precious farmland. And Mary Miller has been very outspoken about that. And we need somebody in that position who understands the geopolitical landscape that we're facing, how China, the threat of China is very, very real, how they've taken over essentially Africa and Latin America. And they are silently taking over America with things like Goshen, with some of these data centers. So we need somebody like that, and not somebody who is going to insult our current administration. Even if you're a Democrat, like if there was a Democrat challenger to Governor J.B. Pritzker and they stood for all of these things, like supporting law enforcement, lowering taxes, I mean, hell, I mean, that would be great. If they were just a normal Democrat, would I vote for them? No, because I vote red. But somebody who isn't insulting towards the Trump administration, which I don't think you're going to find a Democrat who doesn't insult the Trump administration, because that's just how far left they are and how crazy they've gotten. They can't even fathom being respectful towards the current federal government. So Trump's going to be there till 2028. So whoever is in there 2026 has to have a working relationship with the federal government, period. So if we don't have a working relationship with the federal government, the state of Illinois is going to be cut up, because that is not how this administration rolls. If you are, for example, the SNAP error rate is exorbitantly high here in the state of Illinois in comparison to other states. The federal government is going to have you respond to that. If you're doing gender ideology in your school districts and allowing boys to participate in girls' sports, you're going to have to answer to that, and you're going to have federal funding cut. And whoever we elect in 2026 has to have a working relationship with the federal government and can't just throw insults out at the Trump administration like the way Governor J.B. Pritzker does. Okay, so let me tell you something, folks. People are seceding from the state of Illinois. 33 counties have decided to secede from the state of Illinois. That's not political theater. That is a tangible cry for help. They are getting pissed off, and our leaders have got to start listening. And they're going to hear it loud in 2026, I'm sure. But we need a good candidate. Mary Miller, Congressman Mary Miller, backs 1099 independent contractors in D.C. Yeah, she's a great. There's only one thing that I don't like Mary Miller is the cannabis thing. I struggle with this because the hemp derived, the Delta 8 and Delta 9, I don't like any of that. And I also don't like the legalization of marijuana. One, it's not legal at a federal level, but it shouldn't be legal at a state level. But she's all about regulating the Delta 8, Delta 9, and I just think that it's unfair. There should be some free market taking place here in that industry. If we're going to have recreational marijuana here in the state of Illinois, we shouldn't regulate it because big marijuana wants to control it and have a monopoly on it. That's the only thing. But Mary Miller, fantastic congressman. She would make a fantastic governor. But I don't know. I don't think that she's going to leave Congress. I also don't know about Darren LaHood leaving Congress. We need somebody good, right? All right. I think that's going to be it for us today. I appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Share this out with your friends, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Love you so much.